Hi folks, in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Starfinder Second Edition Player Core and GM Core and let you know what I think about the second edition of Starfinder. So Paizo sent us over these books. Just to be clear, we got free copies to share our thoughts with you on it. And a bonus for this video, we are giving away a copy of a player handbook and GM Core to one of you lucky viewers, so stick around to the end to find out how to enter. So if you are completely new to Starfinder, it is a science fantasy RPG setting. It's based off of the Pathfinder RPG system, as well as expands the Pathfinder world into a future space setting. Magic meets technology. You have starships, androids, robots, phasers, but also magic users and divine and arcane energy, as well as you get to explore this vast alien world. First edition came out a while ago, and while it was really loved, there were some issues with the system. And so the folks over at Paizo decided to release a second edition. Also, this was timed very well with the release of the Pathfinder Remastered, as well as their open orc like licensing, open rule something. I forgot the last what it stands for. But a like, hey, if you are deciding to design supplements or modules or stuff like that for this setting, here's the guidelines that you need to follow. And this was all done in response to stuff that Wizards had done with some D&D 2024, whatever it's being called. Okay, so let's dive into these actual books. Starting off with the Player Core. Now, while this is the Player Core, players, this is really the main book that you are going to need. Game Masters are also going to need to use this book. This book gives you everything you need to create the character. It also has a really great section explaining the world that Starfinder takes place in, gives a little bit of history, some ideas about the different planets and peoples that populate this world. You're going to find equipment, spells, items, backgrounds, ancestries, all of those things to create a character are going to be in this book. It also has all of the rules for how to play the game. And I will say the way that the book is laid out, it's very beginner friendly. It's easy to kind of skip over things if you're an advanced player and are a little bit more familiar with stuff. But you don't need to know how to play an RPG before picking up this book. It does kind of give you a little bit of a walkthrough with that. In a minute, I'm going to talk about some of the changes that have been made from first edition to second edition. Let's talk very briefly about what is in the Game Master Core. So the Game Master Core is what the Game Master needs. It has all of the rules as well as some help for Game Masters on how to run a game in the Starfinder system. The book is broken down into a number of different chapters. The first talking about how to run the game. So this has both the rules for how to run the game as well as some just general Game Master advice. And I like that they put this advice in there. Then the next chapter goes into building the game. How to create a campaign, how to create adventures, how to create all of the things that you need to build a campaign. I like that they start out with how to run and then move into how to build, because there may be some game masters who are just interested in running modules. They're not really interested in building their own games and creating from scratch anything. They just want to run the game. So I think that's great. It kind of guides you through the complexities of being a game master. It doesn't start out with here, create everything. That can be super overwhelming if it were to start with that. So I like that the order of the chapters are that way. Then the third chapter goes into a lot more detail about the Pact Worlds. So this is kind of the setting information. There's a lot more information in here than that's in the player handbook, which I think is really good that it gives you a little bit of that information in the player handbook, enough that like players are going to be familiar. They're going to have the knowledge they need to know, like, oh, this is the ancestry I want to pick, or this is the world that I think my character should come from, as well as just to like have that baseline knowledge about the universe they're playing in, to be able to make some like in-character choices once they're actually playing. But then they don't necessarily need as much detail about the world as the game master. One of the things that is special to Pathfinder and Starfinder is the setting. It is not just a rule set, but it also has a setting. Now you could use just the rule set to play in your own setting, but I think you're not really getting as much out of it because there's been a lot of thought that's gone into this setting. The fourth chapter talks about subsystems, which is kind of like alternate rules, maybe not even alternate rules, but rule sets that don't always come up, such as infiltration, chase, hacking, influence, some of those things that you might not have in every single game, but it's nice to have those kind of highlighted for when you're having a moment of like, oh, great, okay, somebody wants to hack into a system, how do I do that? And the final chapter is Anachronist Adventures, and this is talking about how to take Pathfinder adventures and rules and stuff like that and put it into Starfinder. Because as I was hinting at earlier, the second edition of Starfinder utilizes the Pathfinder Second Edition remastered rule set as its baseline. I really like that they made this change. There were similarities and things in common between Pathfinder First Edition and Starfinder First Edition, or even Pathfinder Second Edition. It didn't 100% line up. So there were times where if you were playing in both, it could get a little confusing because things might be done slightly differently. Or I think it also just made it a little bit harder to go from people who had been playing Pathfinder to jump into Starfinder, and back and forth. So with this new choice to have the baseline of the rule sets being the same, and then there are some things that are a little different between the two, but that tends to be much more with the like technology and the things that are unique to Starfinder that you aren't going to find in Pathfinder and vice versa. I think that it makes it a lot easier. It also means that if you have Pathfinder adventures or monsters or anything like that, you can take that and put it into Starfinder and it will work, which I think is going to open up a lot more options for player choices, for monsters you could run into, adventures that you can go on. It just opens up a lot more of these options and makes it a lot easier to kind of plug and play and not have to do a lot of transitioning or like, okay, this doesn't quite port over. A big thanks to all of our patrons, especially Nicole. If you want to support our channel, you can head on over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative and check out the perks of being a patron. All right, let's get back to the review. Okay, in the player core, there are 10 ancestries to choose from, plus 2 versatile ancestries, which I think is a nice mix of things. One thing I really like about Starfinder is that the alien races, the alien ancestries, feel alien. It does not feel like, oh, this is just a space elf or this is a space orc. Like, you can have those things, but they do have some of these ancestries that feel very different, very unique. You know, you've got like a typical android, but you also have the Barathu, which feels very alien. My personal favorite are the Skittermander. They feel like this very fun, kind of cutesy alien creature, but like cutesy in that way of like, oh, look, you're so cute. Ah, you're attacking me. All of the ancestries that were kind of the classic Starfinder ancestries have been ported over and they've all been updated. Everything's been updated with some tweaks and adjustments, taking in all of the feedback that Paizo got from first edition as well as through their second edition playtests. It does feel like Paizo did a good job of taking the feedback and making changes, making it a game that more players are going to enjoy. Now, you know, not everybody's going to be happy with all of the changes. It's just how life goes. But it feels like they took kind of, dig down to, okay, a lot of people are talking about this one thing. Yes, we will change that. Or there are a whole bunch of other critiques that may seem separate, but it feels like they did a good job of seeing like, oh, those all seem to have a central problem. We can fix that. There are 6 different classes that you can choose from. You will notice that the mechanic and technomancer are absent. I have a feeling this is probably something that's going to come out in like an advanced player core or something. But I do like the 6 that they do have. I kind of would have liked to see just all 8 have like that one core. But I understand, like, from a company standpoint, like, we want to be able to have additional things that come out that people are interested in. And I think those 2 classes are maybe some of the more fringe classes, like, less people are really wanting to play them. So more likely to, like, if you really want that, you can go seek out the player core. Or maybe you can figure out how to adapt them into second edition if they don't end up releasing those. Also, you will notice that there is a merged armor class. You no longer have separate energy and kinetic armor classes. I think this just simplifies combat. While I liked in the first one having that, like, it did feel a little bit like acknowledging there are all these different kinds of weapons. I think just simplifying that for combat, because Starfinder First Edition combat could be a bit too crunchy for me. I think that just adds a nice little layer of simplicity and doesn't really lose a whole lot of what makes Starfinder special. As always, this book is very easy to use, wonderful to look at. The layout is very clear. There are all of these great every single page has these side things so you know where you are in the book and can easily navigate to where you need to be. It's got some beautiful artwork that really brings to life all of these different worlds and characters, and it's all very cohesive, so it all feels like the same world. And the layout overall feels like it's very easy to understand, easy to find the information that you are going to need to run and play the game. This does have rules for running a starship, for the starship combat, as well as how to handle things on your starship. I know that was something that Ryan pointed out in the player test that he looked at and reviewed, that there wasn't the starship rules. Don't worry, that's in here. That feels like a very important thing to note, because starships, you're going to have some kind of starship combat encounter, or at least need to know, like, how do we maintain the ship? So overall, I think the Starfinder Second Edition player and GM core is a really good move in the right direction. It feels like a second edition. It feels like the great things about the first edition are still there. They've just revamped it so it's cleaner, a little bit more streamlined, and it fits great with Pathfinder. So you aren't needing to do a whole bunch of work to be able to take something from Pathfinder and put it into Starfinder, which makes sense because they're supposed to be taking place in the same universe. Starfinder is Pathfinder thousands of years in the future. So it makes sense that you would have them kind of cross-compatible. So if you are looking for a sci-fi setting that still embraces a lot of fantasy elements, I really think this is the game for you. It is on the crunchier side, so that's something to consider, but I don't think it's too crunchy that new players or people who like simpler rules can't learn it and pick it up easily. The advice for players at the beginning of the player core is really good, and it feels like something that, like, once you learn your character, you will be set. There aren't a whole ton of things that the player necessarily needs to know. The game master needs to be able to embrace the crunch, though. What do you think about Starfinder Second Edition? Have you picked up the books? Are you planning to? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are giving away both a game master and player core to one lucky viewer. So follow the link in the description to find out how you could win your own copy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!